Today, we're going to talk about one of the most important documents ever written, and we're going to ask a question that honestly affects every single one of us.
Just think about that for a second. What if our global rulebook for what it means to be treated like a human being was drafted in a world with no smartphones, no social media, no idea of the environmental crisis we're facing, a world where you couldn't just tap a button and share your thoughts with, a billion people? See, that document was a massive achievement. It really was. But the world it was designed for, it looks almost nothing like the world we live in now. And that's really what this is all about, that huge gap between the 1948 vision and our 21st century reality.
So to really get why an update is even on the table, we have to appreciate just what a game changer the original declaration was. Let's kind of set the scene.
I mean, you have to imagine coming out of the absolute devastation of a global war. The world's leaders knew they had to do something. They had to draw a line in the sand. This was basically humanity's promise to itself, a promise to do better.
And here's the crucial thing to remember about the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or UDHR. It was designed to protect people from their own governments. It was meant to be a shield. Its 30 articles were totally revolutionary, establishing things like the right to life and liberty as just basic cornerstones of how the world should work.
And this slide, wow, it just lays it all out, doesn't it? The world of the UDHR is not our world. The digital revolution, the climate crisis, the rise of these massive globe-spanning corporations, they've all created threats that the original drafters just couldn't have possibly imagined. So the question is, are our rights keeping up?
And this brings us right to the heart of the problem. You see, the protections that were so important back in 1948 are, of course, still essential. But they just don't cover the brand new challenges we're all facing today.
This right here really paints the picture. Back then, the main threat was kind of like a big fortress with one single gatekeeper, the state. But today, the threats are much more like a tangled web, with all these different threads coming from private companies, from the code that secretly runs our lives, and even from the planet itself, breaking down.
Okay, let's start with the big one, the one we all feel every day. The digital world has completely changed everything, but our rulebook for human rights hasn't really caught up.
I mean, think about it. Your personal data is now one of the most valuable commodities on Earth. You could get denied a job or a loan because of some biased algorithm you'll never see or get to challenge. And now, with new neurotechnology coming along, we're even starting to talk about the privacy of our own thoughts. The 1948 framework just has nothing to say about any of this. All right, next up is a challenge that threatens, well, pretty much everything. It's an existential threat that the original drafters just couldn't have seen coming.
See, climate change isn't just an environmental problem. It's a massive human rights problem. It hits the poor and vulnerable the hardest, and it's basically stealing the future from generations that haven't even been born yet. And right now, the UDHR doesn't explicitly guarantee anyone the right to a healthy, livable planet.
The third major challenge comes from a different kind of power. We're talking about actors who aren't countries at all, but who can be just as powerful, if not more so.
So the original UDHR was built to keep governments in check. But what happens when a company's decisions can impact the lives of millions? Like a factory polluting a river, or a social media algorithm that spreads dangerous misinformation. Right now, the system mostly relies on these voluntary guidelines. And frankly, they just haven't been enough.
And finally, let's talk about something that hits close to home for so many of us: the way we work. The entire structure of our economy has been flipped on its head, creating all sorts of new problems.
You know that traditional idea of a 9-to-5 job with benefits and security? For so many people, that's just gone. It's been replaced by the gig economy. But are our rights keeping up? We've got automation threatening jobs and this growing wealth gap that's really straining the fabric of society. Our economic rights have to reflect this new world.
So, okay, we've laid out these huge challenges. Now what? Let's talk about some of the solutions being proposed. And this isn't about tearing everything down, it's about building something stronger for the new era we're living in.
And this is a really, really important point. The core ideas from 1948, that rights are universal and belong to everyone, those are timeless. Think of it like a historic house. You don't knock down the foundation, you add on to it, you modernize it to make it work for the family living there today.
So what would these enhancements actually look like? Well, here's a great example. A new Article 31 could establish your right to control your digital self. It would mean you have a fundamental right to know what data a company has on you and to tell them to delete it. Simply put, your data would belong to you, not to them.
And to deal with that rise in corporate power, A proposed Article 32 would make human rights obligations legally binding for big businesses. This moves way beyond just voluntary guidelines and creates real accountability, even suggesting an international court for the worst offenders. It gives these rules some actual teeth.
So, let's just quickly recap the big goals here. First, secure our digital lives. Second, hold corporations truly responsible. Third, guarantee a healthy planet for everyone. And finally, and this is so important, create stronger ways to actually enforce these rights so they aren't just words on a piece of paper.
When you step back and look at the big picture, this isn't just some legal project or a political debate. This is about what kind of world we want to live in and what kind of world we want to leave behind.
The challenges we face today, from AI to climate change, they're huge. They demand a response that's just as big. This is about the world we are building right now for our kids and their kids, making sure that dignity and freedom are things they can actually experience.
And that really is the bottom line, isn't it? I think it's pretty clear that these updates are needed. The real question is whether we, as a global community, have the courage and the will to actually make them happen. And the answer to that question is going to define our century.